Good evening again. Ralph E. Hartman, candidate for District 16, U.S. Representative, right in Canada. Anyone who would like to vote for me, I'm sorry for the difficulty, but my name has to be written on the ballot. Another difficulty that I encountered yesterday. Whenever I'm shopping, I always only hope that the ladies and children are always safe. There's a lot of various commenting pertaining to me, and sometimes it's a little bit worrisome because some persons are able to know details that I haven't said, that have known about me for whatever reasons, because of the book or because of whatever other details, reports or previous time in my life, some that are nice about being facilitated by the operation. You know, there's so much friendly commenting, and I always care. Forgive me a little bit of stammering because today really has been a lot of confusion. Yesterday, early yesterday evening, I was in Publix. I had idled in my car, rental car. I had rented a car from Avis the day before for the first time, and I was just sitting in the car with the air conditioning on for maybe a half an hour or so before I walked into the store. And then I was on to the aisle that had sodas and snacks. And I saw a really cute sight, a teen girl, young teen girl, I don't know, maybe 16, 18, whatever. Really cute scene. She's shopping and looks a little bit musical about it, really cute. And as I pass by shopping, she decides to start walking away and says the word cute. So anyway, it's really important that I'm considered at all. And I always just care about the girls. I wouldn't have ever wanted to offend or harm any of them. So anyway, I experienced yet another detail in life that I consider important, that I've only been quiet about. A young girl that I don't know and maybe won't see again because, I'm just not in the same place all the time, etc. And then she proceeded to shop elsewhere, and I finished my shopping, and then I walked back out to the car. Well, what happens when I walk back out to the car? The terrible abuse criminals, including the man who sounds like Bowery, started their terrible, noisy attack. I am a good patriot, but I wouldn't have joined the Marine Corps, and even if I was 67, even e- even if- even if I would have, by this time in my life, I certainly wouldn't have stayed. As a matter of fact, I'm beyond the age limitation. But they've done it to me through so many years, and because they're so rich and provided moment to moment because of the operation and the family or whatever, is that they never stop. When I'm off the road, they continue. They just loudly ranting. They just get from traffic, air conditioning. They're terrible. They always force there to be arguing. They like there being pandemonium. So anyway, they of course were informed that I had encountered a cute young lady in the store. So anyway, they resume accusing me of being a molester. And I'm telling you, the reason they say that is because they themselves are a very bad variety of gays, and that they're of a corruption, and their attitudes are actually against the girls. They accuse me so they could pivot on, accuse me of agreeing about them then saying how threatening that they victimize the girls actually. So anyway, I'm on my way out to my car, out to the rental car, not my car. And the man who sounds like and portrays himself as Bowering starts at me again. Says you have to be out to these age groups. You know, again, reminding me that I'm old. But I wouldn't have even thought of trying to make any advances or anything about the young lady. So anyway, he starts with that harassing. He's always with his marine corruption, and then so I go on to the car. I can't remember all of the other harassing that was broadcasted in traffic. So anyway, I sit there worrying, and I'm thinking, Ralph, you got to trust that girls and children just shop safely in the grocery store. You've heard threats before, but everyone has to trust that that the stores are still that the employees care about the people, and that it's a nice, clean, comfortable environment. So you can't if I went back in and start following the girl around, they'd be accusing me of being a molester. They accuse me of stalking. Others like to accuse that I unreasonably worry when there isn't any cause for worry. So anyway, it's the concern that happens when you encounter somebody you'd always care about, but you can't know. So anyway, I started to drive away after maybe, I don't know, 15 or 20 minutes. And then I saw the young lady walking out. She was carrying a little bit of, she was carrying a couple of plastic bags of groceries and walking out. There wasn't anyone behind her. I didn't see anyone in front of her. And so I was glad to see, well, of course, she shopped safely and she's on her way to her car. I considered that maybe she looked a little bit concerned, but she was okay and alone. So anyway, I drive away, and then later on, as the night progresses, the harassment in the traffic wanted to scare me that they had done something to her, even though all I did was see that it wasn't even dark yet, in front of a busy school location. You know, I just had to assume that she was on her way out to her car safely. Sorry, there's mosquitoes buzzing. So anyway, they want to scare you also. When you care about a young lady, they'd instead want to, as soon as you don't see her again, they want you to worry that they took her away to eat her. And just saying things like that, just testifying, mentioning details like that, they're always said in the clandestine kind of broadcasting that some of corruption don't even like to acknowledge happening, and that there are others of corruption that build up on it, and that they're taught to believe that it's supposed to be happening, that there's supposed to be noise and corruption in the traffic sound, but it's really just supposed to be regular traffic. There isn't any excuse for the constant disruption. Authorities and military or police certainly can use whatever methods that don't involve actual force when they're involved in an actual action. But when it 24 hours a day, pummeling at some one individual all the time, it really is an abuse. But my various uh, reports to local authorities, for whatever reason, while I'm otherwise considered fairly in ways that there is an extraordinary amount of consideration, that my complaints aren't overtly answered, and my online forms to DCF, for example, were either erased or set aside, and it's an ongoing matter. You know, I was on the phone one time. I think it was in 2015. I was on the phone to a lady at DCF one day from a bus stop on Tuttle, and as soon as the call ended, a woman sounding the same as who I was talking to on the phone switched to traffic, wanting to sound critical, and kind of like basically kind of deferring me away. And back in last year in August when I was in Denver, there was different broadcasting asserting a lot of concern for me, that they were wanting me to be sure to get back to Sarasota. And of course, I was routing myself back anyway. I had lived in Denver back in 91, early 92, and I wanted to one time travel back to prove that I had cared about people there also, that I hadn't run away with a bad attitude. So I traveled Amtrak to Denver, and I stayed for I think it was 8 nights, 7 or 8 nights. So anyway, while I was there, I sent a contact to DCF, a supervisor. I don't remember the name right now, but this time it was actually replied to, and I appreciated the reply. But then when I get back, all there was really was a referral to it was mostly for homeless persons who aren't really working on any matters, or working with all these complex, sometimes very complex reports. It's a suggestion of a form that she sent me included first step, and I had heard about that place 20 years ago, and I'd seen their location. It just wouldn't have been appropriate to this, because back in 1990, months after the Blitz first started, or about a year after the Blitz first started, I tried the local Salvation Army Lodge, and there's a lot of people there, employees, staff, and sometimes deputies, and there was very intense broadcasting disruption from traffic, and into the AC sound, etc. And they get some persons that are partly psychic, commenting and disrupting, while others are friendly witnessing, and others are just trying to get by about their own difficulties. And I stayed for 30 days, But when there wasn't going to be any help, I learned that the best route for me, until I would maybe get help about the matters, was to go outside and just trust being out and about. And that's back then in early '90 was when I ended up spending a lot of nights out on Lido Beach, being as good about as I could, just drinking beers to be able to sleep. So anyway, uh, years passed, and there was a day out on Bee Ridge, off of Bee Ridge on Beneva, when a man alleging being from the FBI. I don't know what his name is. I had talked to an agent by the name of Rod Huff. I don't know anything about any street crime. I didn't know anything about any drugs or whatever. But I was often hearing threats said against our people and nation through the traffic broadcasting. Well, on one day, a particular man alleging being from the FBI said, "You're suffering from one of the worst forms of child abuse." And that really kind of stunned me. How old was I back then? I think, what year was it? I don't know. I'll guess that it was in about 90, maybe 96. So anyway, excuse me, I'm not waving, I'm swatting mosquitoes away. So anyway, suddenly I'm hearing somebody portraying himself as official when I'm in my probably in my late 40s, and portray me as being a victim of child abuse. Well, how can I possibly portray myself as being a victim of child abuse when I'm so much older? So I felt ridiculous about it. So, but I thought, well, maybe there's hope that he's going to help me, that they're going to use their resources to contact. But there wasn't any contact, there wasn't any guidance. So I don't remember any of the other sequence, but I just wanted to assure people that I did make a lot of efforts to get help. But when you're in a situation that you don't have resources of your own, and even if you're having to kind of be out and maybe be on properties where you could technically be accused of trespassing, etc., that you can't be pushy about it, about the matter. You know, the fact is that back in the early 1989, a very loud disturbance started, and I heard for sure that it was directed at me personally, but I didn't know who they were, I didn't know what entity, and I didn't even want to suspect anything of the United States about it. So anyway, that was what happened, and through years there were when I went to, for example, there were times that I collected food stamps. I deserve to have it, and I very much appreciate receiving when I need it, and it's something that I think is really good for the people, and that I'd always want to maintain. But one time I asked about what's that. Children, families that say that there's something else that you can get a little bit of income, and they say that's only for families that have children. And so that sounded partly sensible to me, so I didn't even pursue the matter. So about trying to get help pertaining to what it really is a very disruptive abuse that threatens others also, is that was made convinced to believe that I was having to wait. And what I'm trying to portray to make clear in this campaign, that can be on behalf of millions of others, is although it is true that it is partly a personal difficulty of an abuse that originates from a family, when it started, I didn't know that. They were very, very secretive. They're very subversive. They're very menacing, and they're aware of everything immediately. Right now, as I'm speaking, always aware, while others are having to cope about uh, being conspired about by them and others without being informed. This is wanting to make sure that the people are better informed, and that there is real action for a change, instead of me always being put off having to wait. So another detail is, when I talk to a deputy for whatever reason, usually the traffic gets quieter. In other words, they're worse than the Mr. Ed show. You hear something obvious, but when real authority comes around, all of a sudden nothing's happening. Except maybe a corrupt deputy, somebody from Highlands or whatever might briefly comment into the sound of the traffic to repeat one or two words of mine, just to throw a complexity into the scene of, yeah, but I'm hearing them also, or whatever. The guys that had the influence of previously being, for example, Phineas Shudo of Sebring and Avon Park. You currently are formerly Avon Park Police Department officer. Okay, Yeah, he's the guy who alleged that he broke into my apartment back when I worked in Avon Park and Jared Ford Mercury back in early 1983, and that he had a sex experience with another man. I wouldn't have allowed either of them into my apartment, but they accessed by using my demo car keys that I forgot to take my house key off. Anyway, that's a different subject. Well, anyway, he continued to be provided by the operation that I had thought back during high school was only a hernia repair. But it turned out to be a full-fledged, very subversive invasion of me. So anyway, he gets into the confusion, and you know, I have a file that has hundreds of email reports to the sheriff's department. But first, in the earlier years, I didn't know about email, and then when I found out about it, I didn't trust it. I thought, well, how can you be sure? You just press a little button and it sends something. Even though I was an electronics technician when I was in the Navy, I was skeptical about email in the beginning. And besides, when I was home, during the latter years, when I started spending a lot of time in the library, is that there was particular gay reference librarians that were given psychic abuse, a psychic intrusive capability. In other words, when I'd be trying to work on reports that I were hoping were confidential, that I was hearing that the matters were betrayed to persons that I wouldn't have even wanted to talk to. So that was another contention that occurred. So, it's so much complexity. So before emailing, that I used to sometimes call deputies to give them more concerns, handwritten. Always on behalf of our people and nation. That sounds kind of like a catch-all, but it is true. And because of the noisy disruption, and because I'm really just trying to be good, I never associated with anyone out on the roadside. I never saw any drugs. When I was on the North Trail area, when I was in this area, through all the years, I never even saw any drugs at all. And one instance I saw some pot on one occasion a lot of years ago. But otherwise never anything. I never sought anything, and I always stayed to myself. So, these contacts, these concerns were all a matter of mostly broadcasted concerns that forced me to isolation. So anyway, the years of accumulation. I used to send USPS certified mail, making sure that I got receipts. You know, it's just mind-boggling. How much the abuse, corruption is still able to get away with. When I was into the Avis, a young gay male that harasses often broke into the lady employee's phone to say the molest accusation. But I'm certain that I don't. And the next thing that they do is, like I've said about last night, that they just when I just nicely greet a lady, even though she nicely speaks of me, possibly from the cute story of Blessie's Christmas Dream, is that the creepy Marine gay Bowering and the others, from their operation interference, is they start pouncing again. They don't like niceness. They don't like gentleness. They're always disrupting, and they like to say threats. But the problem is that there is corruption that doesn't like to have to cope about the various broadcasting confusion. It isn't really a line deputy matter because there isn't any actual action occurring on the scene, and it involves a lot of complexity. Complexity has to be written. You can't be trying to explain multiple inputs, of confusion in broadcasting in telephone conversations. So it's an accumulation through a lot of years. I visited the office of Representative Catherine Harris back before I started to keep a journal. I wrote out a form. I explained a synopsis of what I was experiencing. I sent some concerns to Representative Dan Miller also. And other than that, I sent emails to Congress, Department of Justice. I sent a lot of the matters that I sent to news to the roll call newspaper of Congress, and there haven't been any replies from anyone. There has to be a change. You know, I can't compel anyone to do anything. I wouldn't have wanted to ever threaten anyone, but the matters are on me. If I had a desk, all of the matters are still on my desk. No matter who I send them to, they're kicked back. I sent a few years ago, I sent a really good, for an amateur, suggestion for a case against known abuse family and their and associates and suspected associates to downtown here in Sarasota. You know, first I sent to the Department of Justice detailing what federal laws that I believe the abuse criminals are in violation of, and to local to detail what local matters are relevant also. I got the item back in the mail with an old slogan on it of "doesn't have a case number." The suggestion was obviously worded to establish the case and be able to add to it. There still hasn't been any overt response. I called the FBI in Tampa about 3 or 4 months ago. I used their online form also. I said they're threatening. The man alleging being the former stepfather is saying nuclear war threat again. I know it sounds crazy because he's so old, but he's very technically capable. He had been involved, he was a Navy pilot. He had been involved with very technical matters of computers and aircraft parts and components and everything through all of the years after his Navy service. There still aren't any replies. I would be a good representative, like I said in the previous message, even after making sure everything was presented as well as possible, even if there was a consensus that people would ask me to resign, I'd say okay. But I believe that people would be glad that there will be a lot of progress, and I'm always for the girls being safe. If there had ever been any misunderstanding in my past, I'd have been very sorry about it. Really, I would have been worried. I'd have continued to care. But all of the accusing is, like wanting to cause nuclear pandemonium. After putting me through years of the disruption, not wanting me to even have pennies in my pockets on Bee Ridge, they started to say they thought of it as providing me nuclear cover against the citizens of Sarasota and the United States, while alleging being Marines. There's got to be a change, people. Look at what's been happening through the recent years. There are people here that have been hearing the word Marine said often every day for how many years? People got to ask, why? Why isn't there anything official ever on the subject? Why the same man in the same community? People have heard various claims about me said for years. I'm partly sorry about it. I don't make any claims about myself. I don't demand the people's attention, but the abusers, the corruption, that they demand attention about everything. They're very egotistical about their conspiring. So please, people, give me a chance. On behalf of all of the people's safety, good Republicans, Democrats, people that are discouraged and not a member of either party, people that don't usually vote, give the guy who's been out on the roadside really always caring a chance for a while. And I'm believing that they're mostly people will be glad about it. And I'm hoping and praying that the terrible corruption hasn't gotten a terrible nuclear war started. I hope that they haven't gotten a progress that can't be reversed, and that people can learn more about the truthful matters, and that there can be a peaceful future of resolving instead of the nuclear Armageddon that's being proffered at, that's being, uh, 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 the nuclear Armageddon threat is corrupt. It isn't some biblical revelation of God's. It's a matter of a lot of pandemonium and corruption. Some of them like to really mostly assert being of the Vatican. We know that there's a lot of wonderful Catholic people that are brought up, born into their system of beliefs, and you know that there are so many wonderful people who want their neighbors to continue safely. That when they have their children, they want their children to continue to have full futures rather than cut off by creepy corruption trying to destroy everything. You know, there's got to be better understanding. You know, I'll tell you, days ago I was out on Bird Key, and I made a message about that the route there, Gulfstream used to be a daily route for me back when I first was forced to be homeless. And before then even, that I worked in the bottle shop liquor store near the end of 1984. As I speak right now, anybody else would have around would have heard that a man of the disruption just said, "I've worked," loudly from the sound of a jet flying over. So anyway, he interrupted me, but I mentioned the truth. That one of the places that I delivered to was the Plymouth Harbor retirement residence. There was good old folks there, and I delivered the bottles of whiskey or whatever, the wine, champagne, nicely and courteously. And one day, a very kindly old man who looked like maybe he used to be an architect himself, had asked me if I was an architect, and it was he or another who looked to me very sincerely, saying, "Are you the missing link?" And I kind of wondered because I was starting to go through a lot of stress and strife back then. And in a way, I am partly a missing link. The testimony's a missing link. A lot of links that the people need, and I'm willing to provide. I've been providing for years. Thanks for your consideration, Sarasota. Living out and about and being in the open lot did cause some embarrassments occasionally, but I was always just wanting to be nice. And through all of the particular time, I was reporting daily as well as I knew how. There was always indirect kind of acknowledgement, a lot of friendly commenting also. I hope I've made that clear before, is that besides all the disruption, that there's often a lot of friendly commenting, awareness and caring, but persons that don't really have the responsibilities and they don't have the power of the means to really do anything about anything. I still appreciate them, and they're noted often in the journals. I hope that I will have a chance, and I'm sorry that the confusion got so bad today that consulting maps, was briefly convinced that somehow I was listed in the wrong district. There was some other commenting by others that indicated that also, but I'm still legitimate. Ralph E. Hartman, write-in candidate, and really, I'm always only for the girls being safe. I wouldn't have ever wanted to subject Annie to any noisy interference. And when they're shopping in the stores, they aren't supposed to be stalked or bothered by anybody that wants to say cannibalism for us. There's got to be a difference. The men who disrupted me, they're from a corruption that likes to say, they like to say cannibalism threat. They say cannibalism threats frequently. Everyone's supposed to be safe instead. Be a good representative if you allow me to. Be good. I never think of threatening anybody. I never think about victimizing anyone. I only shop nicely in grocery stores. I never thought of being violent at anyone. The accusations that I said I killed somebody was wrong. I was only alone rehearsing what I thought I might have to say that I might say as a bluff if I was almost killed again. Back in '82, I had almost been killed a couple of times, really dramatically and obviously. So anyway, I've never hurt anyone. I've never victimized anyone. I wouldn't have ever wanted to offend any ladies, and I never even thought of molesting any children. And I hope everyone's going to have a safe and a peaceful good night. Thanks again. Have a good night.